one of the things that led up to that, because you were asking about technology, and I think by this point you could ask every editor how many systems have they learned, and there's the film, there's the chem, the montage, the Ediflex, the CMX 6000 touch vision, and any of like a whole host of systems. And then there was the Spectra system, which was laser discs, and it was probably one of the really cumbersome systems to learn, but at that time all sitcoms were being done on the system, and it was kind of like this, they were just all being done, and there was no bones about it. And so I learned the system, and so I had that knowledge on my resume, but I had never done a sitcom. And the year before that, I had gone in for an interview for a sitcom, and I remember one of the producers looking at me and saying, "Whoa, what on your resume is a sitcom?" And I said, "Nothing." And I looked around the room at the silent reaction shots of everybody, and I said, "Is that a problem?" I knew immediately it was. And so I got into the pool of interviews to go for Seinfeld, and I thought, there's just no way I'm going to ever get this job because of my past experience. And so I walked in and met Larry David, and I thought, wow, this is really going to be like the most fun ever. And so we just really hit it off in talking about, clothes and just all sorts of other stuff on the show. And I remember Larry saying to me, "What was your favorite episode?" And I said, "Well, Chinese restaurant." And he said, "Well, that was the episode that the network hated the most." And I said, "Wow, what do they know?" And a little while later, he says, "Well, that was his favorite episode." And I thought, well, that's great. We just had this wonderful, wonderful time. And Larry Charles was one of the writers on the show. He asked me one of the best questions I've ever been asked. "If you're so good, why aren't you working now?" I thought, wow, good one. And I actually had something that was just going to start, so I had a good answer for it. And so I left, and 2 days later I get a phone call asking if I wanted to do the show, and I thought, really? And that was it. That was just like a match made in heaven. It was just a great place to be.
Yeah, it sounds like you were a fan of the show.
Oh, I definitely was. And up until that point, you had to really try and find Seinfeld because they were always moving it around. And the very first year, I think they had 4 episodes on, and the second year was something like 9. And when I got on, it was for the full 22.
What do you think got you the job?
Maybe because they didn't know I was going to get the job. I think knowing a lot of the other editors I was up against, I think they all thought, I'm going to get that job, because I think that maybe they had a little bit more, I don't know, cockiness about it. I don't really know. But maybe I was just me. I don't know.
Now, when did you first meet Jerry Seinfeld?
Probably, I don't remember at what point, because I know that when I started the show was not too long. When I started, I think was pretty close to when they were starting the first episode for that season.
Okay. Now, right when you got the job, had you already been sort of thinking about the editing style of Seinfeld?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that one of the questions that I was asked was, what would you like to do editorially? And I said, well, I think the show is a little stodgy. And I think one of the reasons for it was that they really love the whole stage aspect of Seinfeld and really having the big wide shots and all of that. And I really thought that the energy on it was dragging down, and that editing and using close-ups and all of that could really just punch up the comedy. And I actually think that really good comedy is very musical, and that a reason why sometimes comedy works or a joke works is because of the rhythm of it. And once you upset that rhythm, you're upsetting the humor. And I think that people just naturally are very musical, and that's what they're responding to in a lot of comedy. So when you slow it down, you're almost sucking the humor out of the moment. But that's my own little theory.
What would you say was your early contributions to the season when you came in and you began?
Well, I spent a lot of time in the editing room with Larry Charles. And Larry is like one of those absolutely amazingly great guys that if you were a kid and you got to pick a dad, it would be Larry Charles. Because Larry just literally knows something about everything and was just a delight to work with. And he was in the editing room one day and he said, "You don't care for having the big wide shots all the time." And I said, "No." I said, "Here's what we could do. I'll cut it your way and you let me cut it my way. We'll have the writers come in and they'll judge which one they like better." And I generally won. And so the style of the show started to change. But the brilliance of Larry David and Larry Charles was they realized what they could do with editing. And I think Larry David caught on immediately and knew where he could pull time out and all of that and say, use this close up and pull that up and blah, blah, blah. And he got it right away. And he also understood the rhythm of the editing, because a lot of times he would literally just listen to the show and not necessarily watch it, but he would listen for his own music. And I've discovered over time that every great showrunner has a music, and you have to get used to what internal dance are they doing, and that rhythm is the rhythm that you try to recreate in your editing. I could flash forward to Sports Night, and I remember with Aaron Sorkin, Aaron had his own dance going on, and I would very often go in his room and say, "Aaron, do these lines for me," and he would say them in Aaronese. And then I would try to find those performances or create that rhythm. And I think that you can look at any great showrunner and they have that. They have a music to their words.